The chamber they were escorted into did not feel like a meeting room. It felt like a display case. Glass walls rose around them with laboratory smoothness, not a single fingerprint, not a single imperfection, as if someone had polished reality before letting them step inside. The lighting was too white, too evenly distributed, the kind that erased shadows instead of casting them, the kind used in places where the truth isn't invited, only measured. Rows of officials sat behind curved desks, motionless, their faces blank but alert, the way scientists examine a specimen that might either answer all their questions or bite their hands off. No one smiled, no one gestured. Ray felt it immediately, the pressure, not from the room, but from expectation. Earth's fear and disbelief sat here with him, disguised as polite silence. Cram shifted beside him, muttering, "Well, they look thrilled," earning a sideways look from Leah. The chairman leaned toward his microphone, voice slow and clinical. "We've reviewed your preliminary statements," he said. A pause, like a scalpel being chosen. "We're not convinced any of this is real." Ray didn't flinch. He'd expected that sentence long before he heard it. Behind the chairman, one of the screens flickered for a fraction of a second, in a pattern Ray recognized from the Anomaly. They had asked Ray to summarize 3 centuries of impossible experience as if it were a missing baggage report. He stood in the center of the glass room, hands clasped behind his back, voice steady. He spoke about Sgr A, the mission, the experiment, the way the fabric of space had twisted like a muscle in spasm, and how ARK-9 had slipped not merely through space, but out of the agreed contract of time. "You expect us to believe," one official said, "that a human-made experiment altered time itself?" Ray met his gaze. "I expect you to believe the readings you paid for." Another official leaned forward. "And this anomaly, you say it's still there?" "Worse," Ray replied, "it's changing." Murmurs spread along the rows, the sound of people almost, but not quite, admitting they were afraid. "So tell me, Commander," the chairman said, fingers steepled, "if this phenomenon is so dangerous, why hasn't it affected Earth?" Ray opened his mouth to answer. Leah quietly raised her wrist display, already showing that Earth had, in fact, just been touched. They had ignored Crom so far. That was their first mistake. He'd stood there, arms folded, watching the exchange with an expression that drifted between boredom and annoyance. But at the chairman's question, why Earth hadn't been affected, something in him snapped. "You know what your problem is," Crom said aloud, without waiting for permission. Every head turned. The security guard at the door tensed. "You stare at the sky with equipment that can barely tell a whisper from a scream," he went on. "Then you call everything you don't understand noise and file it under irrelevant." "Crom," Ray said quietly. "No, this is good," Crom continued, stepping forward, gesturing at the screens. "You think nothing happened to Earth because your dials didn't move. I've watched space tear like wet metal, and your instruments call it a minor fluctuation." A few officials bristled. One opened his mouth to object. Crom pointed at them with 2 fingers. "You're asking the wrong question. It's not, why hasn't it affected Earth? It's, how many times has it already done it, and you didn't notice?" Leah finally tapped her wrist, and the chamber lights flickered as if in answer. The chamber dimmed for a heartbeat, then recovered, like a nervous tick in the building's nervous system. A subtle tremor passed through the floor. A few pens rolled across glass desks. "That," Leah said calmly, "would be one example." She projected the Anomaly's model into the center of the room. It rose as a luminous shifting volume, a region of twisted geometry rendered by algorithms still partly stolen from the future. Lines of force bent in unnatural arcs, surfaces folded into themselves in a way the human eye did not like. "This is the anomaly 3 months ago," she said. The volume shrank, colors cooler. "This is last week." It expanded, edges fraying like a wound that refused to close. "And this," she added, overlaying a new frame, "is today." A thin halo had appeared, a faint ring at the outer boundary, asymmetrical, brightening at one point like a pupil catching light. "It's getting larger," Leah said, "and developing structure. It's not static, it's evolving." Ray watched the officials' faces change. Someone swallowed audibly. "If this trend continues," she concluded, zooming the model out until a small blue sphere appeared nearby, "the outer fringe will brush the solar system within months." At that moment, an alert flashed on her wrist. Earth's magnetosphere had just buckled again. The projection faded as Leah checked the new data. Her composure didn't crack, but her pupils narrowed. "We just recorded another disturbance in the magnetosphere," she said. "Coincidence," an official muttered. "Same amplitude, same signature," Leah replied. "Same timing offset as when ARK-9 jumped. It's like someone's knocking on the door and pushing harder each time." The chairman frowned. "Our monitoring stations, your monitoring stations," Cram cut in, "have been calling this background variation for how long?" He took a step toward the glass, as if he could lean into the planet itself. "When the jump happened, everything shook, not just out there. The field around your cozy little world twitched like it had a muscle cramp. We felt it on ARK-9. If it's happening again," he let the sentence hang. An older woman on the committee finally said what the others were thinking. "Are you saying this anomaly could reach us?" Ray did not soften it. "I'm saying it already has," he said, "and this is just the beginning." The chairman looked at them, then at the shaking data lines, and for the first time, fear outweighed skepticism in his eyes. The meeting recessed, but the tension did not. Ray sat alone in a smaller conference room that smelled faintly of recycled air and old coffee. The walls here were not glass, they were opaque, sound-insulated, built for decisions, not performances. The chairman entered with 2 aides and a sealed envelope. It was almost anachronistic, paper in a world of encrypted streams, but maybe that made it feel heavier, more official. "We're not ready to announce anything public," he began. "Panic would not help anyone." Ray said nothing. He already knew how this conversation ended. The question was how long the man would dance around it. "NASA and SpaceX have agreed to form a joint task force under an international mandate. Their facilities, your experience." He placed the envelope on the table and slid it forward. "Project Backtrack," Ray read on the cover. The letters were stark, almost cold. "You will lead the mission," the chairman said. "Your crew will assist in translating your technology for our time." Ray looked up. "There isn't much time left to translate." "We're aware," the man replied. "That's why you launch as soon as you can stand without collapsing." As Ray signed, the lights flickered again, but this time only in this room. The NASA-SpaceX joint complex had always been impressive, a cathedral of steel, glass, and ambition. But to Ray, Leah, and Cram, it felt quaint, like walking through a museum display on early spaceflight. In the main assembly hangar, cranes crept along rails, moving sections of future-looking hardware that were, in fact, painfully primitive compared to ARK-9. Rows of engineers and technicians in bright vests watched as the Helix crew approached, phones discreetly raised to capture the moment. "They're staring at us like we're the aliens," Cram muttered. "In this century, we kinda are," Leah replied. At the far end of the hangar, a group of leads was waiting. NASA badges, SpaceX badges, different logos, same wary curiosity. One of them, a man with tired eyes and coffee permanently attached to his hand, extended his arm. "Commander Ray," he said, "I'm Director Holloway. We'll be building your ship." "Our ship," Ray corrected gently, "and you'll be building it with tools that weren't designed for it." Holloway forced a smile. "Then you'll have to show us how to cheat." He gestured to a cleared space in the center of the hangar, where the skeleton of Helix 2 was already being assembled around an invisible core only the future could provide. Cram stood in front of a half-constructed control console like a teacher in front of a class that hadn't done the reading. On the table lay a sleek, dark panel, inert, innocent-looking, about as threatening as a coffee table. Engineers clustered around it with notebooks and tablets, ready to dissect it. "First rule," Cram said, "you don't poke it like it's a touchscreen from a museum. It doesn't care about your fingers. It cares about what you're trying to do." "That's not a helpful parameter," one engineer objected. "We need a signal type, voltage, frequency, some—" He reached out and tapped the panel. The panel flared to life with a sudden shimmer, and a nearby maintenance drone, resting on a stand, jerked upright, rotors spinning. It shot 3 meters into the air, wobbling madly, then smashed into a lighting rig with a hollow clang. Everyone flinched. The panel went dark again, innocent as ever. Cram sighed. "Congratulations, you pressed the 'please behave like a confused bee' function." "You programmed that?" someone asked, horrified. "No," Cram said. "You did, accidentally. That's the point." As they argued, Cram noticed the panel flicker once more, but this time no one had touched it. The quantum stabilizer prototype sat in the center of a reinforced test bay, surrounded by sensor towers like nervous priests watching a newly awakened god. Cables snaked across the floor into racks of equipment that hummed at different, disagreeing frequencies. "This is the spine," Crom told them. "If it fails, you don't just lose power, you lose the right to assume cause still comes before effect." "That's reassuring," someone muttered. Holloway gave the command. "Begin initial activation sequence." The stabilizer chirped through a series of tones too precise to be random. Its core brightened, then wavered. Readouts on the screens flickered from green to yellow to a jittery orange. "Field is forming," Leah reported, "but it's unstable, phase variance climbing." The tone rose to an almost painful whine. "Shut it down," Holloway snapped. Crom moved faster than the others, palms on the emergency interlock. The device's glow collapsed, the whine cutting off mid-note. For a moment, there was relief. Then the stabilizer pulsed once, softly, without power, like a muscle flexing in its sleep. "Did you see that?" Crom whispered. "No systems active," Leah said, checking again. "It moved on its own." On the nearest monitor, a new line of data appeared, a clean, precise spike, pointing toward a coordinate deeper than the anomaly's charted edge. Later, in the data lab, the stabilizer logs unfolded across multiple screens. Most of it was the expected chaos of a system trying not to tear its own equations apart. But threaded through the noise was something else. "Here," Leah said, isolating a segment. The waveform stabilized into a repeating shape, not symmetrical, but consistent, like handwriting. It wasn't binary, it wasn't any modulation protocol the 21st century techs recognized. "It's structured," Leah said, "too ordered to be random, too playful to be a malfunction." Holloway shook his head. "Stray feedback, a measurement artifact." "Artifacts don't repeat with variation," she replied. "This does. It's like it's reacting to our activation attempts." Cram leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. We pinged something, it pinged back. A resonance, Holloway insisted. A response, Cram corrected, unless your resonances regularly draw little eyes. On the main display, Leah enhanced the pattern. In the center of the waveform, an oval cluster repeated with each cycle, a gap at the center flickering with increasing intensity. It looked disturbingly like a pupil focusing. The last recorded pulse nudged the inferred coordinate of the anomaly's core, as if suggesting quietly, "Come here." The simulator room was a forest of pods, each one a cocoon of chairs, harnesses, and future-born interfaces wired clumsily into present-day support systems. It smelled of metal, plastic, and recycled nervousness. "Remember," Ray told the first group of pilots, "this isn't a traditional control stack. You're not issuing commands, you're negotiating agreements." "That's comforting," one pilot said dryly, strapping in. The scenario booted, a simulated approach to the anomaly region, gravitational eddies swirling like invisible storms. As the pilots tried to compensate, the ship model bucked and twisted on the display. "You can't fight it like atmospheric turbulence," Ray called out. "You have to anticipate the frame dragging, let the ship lean into it." One pod jerked violently, alarm tones screeching. The simulator flashed red, trajectory failure. Inside, the pilot panted, knuckles white. "Feels like it's trying to throw me off." "It is," Ray said, "until you convince it not to." On the overhead screen, the failed trajectory replayed, and for a single frame, as the virtual ship crossed a certain threshold, the background noise condensed into a shape behind it, a structure, like a corridor appearing where there should be void. The image auto-flagged itself for review, tagged by the system as unknown architecture. Cram drifted through the engineering bays like a storm cloud made of sarcasm and caffeine. Everywhere he went, something was being misconnected, misinterpreted, or misnamed. "That is not a backup coolant feed," he told one tech, tapping a pipe. "That is the part that decides whether the stabilizer hums gently or turns the ship inside out." The tech blanched. "And this console?" "That," Cram sighed, "is the 'please don't touch anything if you enjoy having a linear sense of time' console." The small group laughed, tension breaking for a heartbeat. It was what he was good at, letting them breathe without letting them relax. But when he thought no one was looking, his hand hovered over the stabilizer's casing, fingertips almost touching the metallic surface. The device vibrated at a frequency too low to hear, but easy to feel in bones. For a moment, his usual commentary died on his tongue. He remembered the first time ARK-9 had jumped, the way reality had felt soft, the way his own memories had smeared at the edges. He pulled his hand back. "Still scared of you," he muttered to the machine, forcing a grin. "Good. That means I'm still sane." As he walked away, the stabilizer thrummed once, precisely matching his departing footsteps, like an echo learning to imitate. Leah's workspace looked less like an office and more like a shrine to patterns. Walls and screens were covered in layered graphs, spectral analyses, and evolving models of the anomaly. She cross-correlated the stabilizer pulses with the new magnetospheric disturbances around Earth. Points lined up with unnerving precision. Every time they activated a key system, a corresponding fluctuation appeared both at the anomaly's coordinates and in Earth's field. "It's not just reacting," she said softly, half to herself. "It's synchronizing." She overlaid the eye-like pattern again, scaling it against the anomaly's latest geometry. Something in the evolving shape was beginning to repeat, like a motif in music. Ray appeared at her door. Bad news or worse news? "Conceptually worse," she admitted. "Scientifically fascinating." He stepped closer, studying the screen. "It's starting to narrow," she said, concentrating. "The outer layers are thinning, but the core is sharpening. If this were natural, we'd expect dissipation. Instead, it's like focus." "Focus on what?" Ray asked. She rotated the model until a vector aligned with a small highlighted point, Earth's orbit. "At us," Leah said. At the edge of the model, the eye shape pulsed once, in perfect sync with the stabilizer's idle hum in the hangar. Helix 2 stood below them, a half-finished silhouette of curves and rings, its stabilizer halo dim but present. From the catwalk above, the ship looked like a question someone had carved out of metal. Ray leaned on the railing, eyes on the hull. Footsteps approached. He didn't have to turn to know it was Cram. "You're staring at it like it's going to say something," Cram remarked. "It's already saying plenty," Ray replied. "We just don't know the language." They stood in silence for a few breaths, listening to the distant clatter of tools and muted voices. "You ever think," Cram said quietly, "that maybe we shouldn't go back?" Ray glanced at him. This wasn't the usual tone. No sarcasm, no edge. Just an exhausted honesty that didn't need to prove anything. "Every day," Ray answered. Cram's fingers tapped the rail. "I remember the jump, the way everything folded. I still wake up feeling like some parts of me didn't quite make it back, and now we're signing up for round 2. "You don't have to come," Ray said. Cram snorted. "Sure, I'll stay here, enjoy linear time, wait for the sky to peel open above my head." He looked down at Helix 2. "If you're going back into that thing," he finished, "I'm not letting you two idiots do it unsupervised." Below, the ship's stabilizer shimmered faintly without any active power feed. The recording booth was small and dark, lit only by the faint glow of the console and the red REC indicator. It felt almost like a confessional. Ray sat alone, the microphone hanging in front of him like a patient question. He'd done dozens of official debriefs since their arrival. This wasn't one of them. "Mission log," he began, then stopped. "No, personal log." He exhaled. "We used to think of black holes as the ultimate dead ends of physics, places where information goes to disappear. But what we found wasn't a dead end. It was a doorway someone had jammed into the side of reality and then left half open." He looked at the waveform on the screen, his own voice translating into data. "It's growing, it's reacting, it's learning our patterns and syncing with them. If there is an intelligence behind it, we don't know if it's curious, hostile, or just indifferent. But it's looking at us now." He paused, fingers hovering above the stop button. "If this is the last log I make in a world where time runs in the right direction," he said, "I want it recorded that we didn't go back out of arrogance. We went because staying was worse." He reached for the control. Before he could press stop, a tiny icon pulsed in the corner of the screen, the same eye symbol blinking in time with his heartbeat. There came a morning when the skeleton of the ship became unmistakably a vessel. Helix 2 rested on its cradle, hull panels fused into an almost seamless surface. The stabilizer ring encircled her midsection like a halo caught mid-rotation, segments humming with a faint bluish luminescence. Cable still umbilicaled her to the ground, but aesthetically she already belonged in the sky. Teams moved around her with a new kind of respect, not just engineers finishing a project, but caretakers tending a creature on the verge of waking up. Holloway walked with Ray, Leah, and Cram along the lower deck, craning his neck to take it all in. "Not bad," Cram said, patting a structural support, "for people who thought quantum foam was a fancy coffee last week." "You do realize," Holloway replied, "that half of this still runs on systems we barely understand." "Welcome to our world," Cram said. Ray stepped closer to the hull. The metal was cool, yet there was a subtle vibration under his palm, like the resonance of a note that had been struck a long time ago and never fully died away. Helix 2, he whispered, testing the name in the air. The ship's stabilizer brightened imperceptibly at the word, as if acknowledging it. The final comprehensive test felt less like running a checklist and more like probing a sleeping animal with a stick to see if it would bite. "All primary systems online," Leah reported from the control room overlooking the hangar. Rows of monitors showed different aspects of Helix 2's internal state. Stabilizer at 20%, containment field stable, for now. Cram flicked through submenus, squinting. "We're picking up oscillations that don't correspond to any ship internal processes. It's like something's tapping along with us." "External interference?" Holloway asked. "Not local," Leah said. "Signal delay is too small. Whatever it is, it's not out there." She pointed toward the sky. "It's connected through that." She highlighted the stabilizer ring. "So our fancy hole-in-reality antenna is getting live feedback," Cram summarized. "Great." They increased the stabilizer's load incrementally. Readouts jittered, then aligned. A harmonic spike appeared on the frequency graphs, repeating with precise intervals. "That pattern again," Leah murmured. "Same as the anomaly, same as the magnetosphere." The ship hummed, a low note felt more than heard. "Helix 2 is in resonance with something on the other side," she said. On a distant deep space satellite, a strain gauge registered a gravitational twitch with exactly the same timing as Helix 2's last pulse. The launch complex looked different, with people lining every accessible balcony, observation deck, and fenced perimeter. Banners and flags moved in the wind like fragments of a story that hadn't been agreed on yet. Most of the world didn't know the details. Officially, Helix 2 was a high-risk exploratory mission to a deep space anomaly. Unofficially, rumors had outrun any press release: time travel, alien contact, doomsday prevention. Families pressed against glass, holding up children to see the slender shape of the ship on the pad. News drones hovered, their camera lenses glinting as they tracked every movement. In the prep room, Ray adjusted his suit seals while watching a muted broadcast on the wall. The ticker at the bottom of the screen scrolled with words like historic and unprecedented. He noticed a shot of the crowd, a girl holding a cardboard sign painted with uneven letters, "Bring back our future." He stared at it for a moment longer than necessary. Cram appeared at his shoulder. "No pressure, right?" Ray managed a small smile. "Just 8 billion performance reviews." "Good thing they picked the right cast," Cram said, tugging at his own suit collar. "Handsome technician, overqualified scientist, confused commander, classic ensemble." Outside, unnoticed by the crowd, a faint ripple distorted the air directly above Helix 2, then vanished. The launch control room was a theater of restrained anxiety. Every console occupied, every headset live, every voice compressed into the tight, practiced language of checklists and confirmations. "Helix 2, this is Control." Holloway's voice came over the internal comm. "Status." "Instruments green," Leah replied from her station aboard the ship. "Stabilizer at standby, all vectors aligned." Ray sat in the commander's seat, straps snug across his chest, the weight both familiar and new. The cockpit smelled faintly of plastics, metal, and the barely there ozone of powered systems. Cram's voice drifted in from behind. "If anything bursts into flames in an unexpected direction, I'd like it on record that it's NASA's wiring." "Noted," Ray said. "Helix 2 began final sequence," Control said. The external cameras showed the pad, the rising steam, the glow at the base of the engines. A subtle vibration crawled up through the structure. 10, a launch officer began. Numbers rolled down. At 7, the stabilizer ring lit up along its circumference, segments blooming with pale light. "Is that supposed to happen now?" Holloway asked sharply. "It's sinking early," Leah said, eyes on her graph, "but levels are within tolerance." At 3, the external feed glitched for a single frame, overlaying the eye pattern over the image of Helix 2. Ray saw it. He wasn't sure if anyone else did. 2, 1, ignition. As the engines roared to life, a distant echo from the Anomaly region matched the ship's thrust frequency with eerie precision. The force of the launch pressed them into their seats, a familiar weight returning like an old injury. The sky outside the small viewport turned from pale to blazing to black, layers of atmosphere peeling away until only stars remained. "Stage separation," Leah reported. "Trajectory nominal, stabilizer holding at 40% power." The shudder of the ascent gave way to the smooth glide of orbital insertion. Below them, Earth curved in impossible calm. Blues, whites, the faint brown scars of continents. Ray always thought there should be some audible acknowledgement when you left the planet. A chime, a bell, an announcement. Instead, there was just the soft hum of systems and the knowledge that every familiar sound now came from machines, not nature. "Helix 2, you are clear of the well," Control's voice said. "Godspeed." "Copy," Ray replied. "We're on our way." Cram floated slightly in his harness, looking out at the shrinking planet. "If we make it back," he said, "I'm filing a complaint about how far the parking lot is from home." Ray's lips twitched. Then, faint on the instruments, a ripple appeared ahead, a distortion against the black. "Visual," Leah said. "Localized frame drag, already." "We're not even close to the recorded boundary yet," Ray said. The Anomaly region was extending feelers out to meet them. As Helix 2 advanced, space itself began to look wrong. Stars near the Anomaly's coordinates blurred into smeared threads, as if someone had dragged a brush through wet paint. Pockets of darkness formed where no natural shadow should be. Not absence of light, but the presence of something else, something that refused to be seen clearly. "Cross-checking position," Leah said, tone clipped. "We're still on the projected vector. The field is denser than last time." Cram peered at the forward display. "That's comforting." On the main view screen, the Anomaly emerged, not as a singular whole, but as a region where geometry forgot how to behave. Planes twisted, arcs broke, distances hesitated. Then, within that chaos, something moved. Not randomly, not in the fluid, formless way of gas or plasma. It shifted with purpose, changing configuration as if turning to face them. For a moment, the swirling distortions aligned into a vast, shadowy outline, not quite symmetrical, but with a sense of left and right, above and below. It felt like being looked at. Cram swallowed, for once without a joke ready. That was not here last time. Leah's reading spiked. Field intensity rising. It's opening. The Anomaly's inner region dilated like a pupil, and Helix 2 stabilizer searched in answer, without Ray's command. The transition was not a jump so much as a surrender. "Stabilizer is locking onto the core vector," Leah said, voice steadier than the data deserved. Numbers on her screen slid toward impossible values. "We're crossing the threshold." Ray's fingers hovered over the manual override. He knew it was symbolic. There was no stopping this now, but symbols had power. "Last chance to back out," Cram said behind him, because someone had to say it. "No," Ray replied. "Last chance to go first." They crossed an invisible line. Light bent sideways, then realized it had never been obliged to move in straight lines in the first place. Colors inverted, then gave up entirely, leaving only a white so intense it felt like an absence. The ship groaned, not audibly, but in the way its structure shivered at the atomic level. Systems began dropping off the boards, one by one,
Indicators blinked from green to black, not as failure, but as irrelevance. Losing external telemetry, Leah said. Internal references decoupling. Then, in the center of the cockpit, where there were no speakers, no transducers, no logical source, they felt it more than heard it. A pulse. A whisper pressed directly into their nervous systems. Return. The word wasn't in any language, and yet they understood it. Every screen went dark. Every sound ceased. For a moment, it felt like they were floating in something that wasn't space and wasn't time. Ray gripped the armrests. "We're here," he said into the void. "Now show us why you wanted us back."
In the absolute darkness ahead, a lattice of faint lights unfolded. Not random stars, but a vast, deliberate structure, waiting.